everybody, welcome to the Going Analog podcast, the show where board game industry guests bring their own topics and games to discuss. So I'm Christina, your host, and we often talk about how board games can bring people together or tear them apart. So to test that, we've done some intense social gaming lately, and our main guinea pig partners were Raina and Phil from 1 Minute Board Games. Hi, Raina and Phil.
Hi, how's it going?
They are definite board gamers. Raina works in the industry as the marketing manager at Pandasaurus Games, and she is 1 Minute Board Games, a TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram channel for bite-sized board game info, where the snappy videos give you a quick, entertaining overview of a game. You can get recommendations, funny little board game-related videos. Phil pops in often, and a lot, yeah. I saw some exciting laminating going on with Phil recently on your channel.
This is Christina basically not knowing what Phil does for 1 Minute Board Games. You can tell.
No, he was on the YouTube channel a lot, but you guys haven't done that much on the YouTube for a while, right?
Yeah, he's my emotional support and definitely my guinea pig. Anytime I need to film a video, I just interrupt his workday and be like, can you just stand in front of this camera and do this for me, please? So
I'm like, okay, here I am.
See? And it's great. You have over 360,000 subscribers on TikTok right now, so that's really exciting.
Is that many? Mm-hmm. Holy crap. Good job, you two.
Thank you.
Good job, Raina, and sometimes Phil.
And Raina. Raina.
So, welcome back to our podcast. We always love having you on, and we've been purposefully playing a lot of these very specific types of games that I'll let Shu introduce, and that's why we invited you on again. So, what's been our experiment with Phil?
That's why you invited me on again?
Them. Shu's here too, as usual, of course.
So, this was actually late last year. We've been getting a lot of pitches from companies for these games, and I'm like, oh, there's kind of a theme here. They're all kind of like party games, but they're a little bit more alternate, like more indie, a little bit not as popular and mainstream as some of the ones we've covered. We covered tons and tons of party games, but these are all, we found out there are a lot of games that are just about getting to know other people, like kind of discovering their personalities, kind of getting to dig into old stories they might have. So so our topic from Going Analog today is getting to know you games. And they're not all party games, but most of them are party games. So we'll talk more about some of these games that we got to get to know Raina and Phil really well. We got to hear a lot of stories that I don't know if we would have known otherwise, right?
Yeah,
because one thing about board gaming is like it's very social. You're hanging out and you're talking, but it's not the same as like, I don't know, if you go into a bar, it's just pure talking. So these games are kind of getting us to just talk, which was a lot of fun. Even like last night, we went out to dinner and played one of these games, and then this was like causing all the conversation at the table throughout the dinner. So we'll talk more about that.
Mm-hmm. And at the same time, we've been also playing a bunch of new to us social deduction games, which is maybe your topic. What's your topic? One minute board games.
Yeah, that's what we wanted to talk about. We've been on a few different, group outings and trips recently. So when it comes to big groups, social deduction games, one of the games that get the most played. So I just wanted to get everyone's opinions on whether or not you like social deduction games, if it's situational, if you do like them, what are your favorite ones?
And those are the most dangerous that could break some friendships. I don't know.
Yeah, one brings us closer together. The other topic kind of pulls us apart.
Exactly. So before we dive into those, we like to talk about more games, of course. We're each going to highlight a game as an icebreaker. And for our game, we wanted to talk about Great Western Trail New Zealand. So I did actually play that with Phil during our snow retreat. It was snowy, but Phil and I never left the cabin with a whole bunch of other people. Shu did. She was so athletic and went snowboarding. It was great.
One day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. Only one day.
And I got too hungover to go out the second day. So.
Yes.
But that was partially Phil's fault, too.
My fault?
Yeah. Yeah, you kept me up till like 4 a.m. the night before. We were just like hanging out.
There was 5 of us there. Not just us two, so
20% due to him.
Yeah.
That's fair. I'll take it.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. So I was super excited about Great Western Trail New Zealand because I love the original Great Western Trail, and this is the third in the series. So there was Argentina with new cows, and then in New Zealand, you have a lot of the same framework as the original Great Western Trail, which is essentially a super big rondel type game where you build out like this trail to go and deliver cows, essentially. So there's a deck building aspect as you're trying to get a really good hand of cows to turn in at the end and sell. And then as you're playing the game, you're building out new buildings that make that trail longer and more interesting and different. So in New Zealand, we're instead trading a lot of sheep, which I mean, both are pretty cute, but sheep are fluffier, so that there's that going for it. And then I think there were some really interesting choices made that lean more into the deck building part. So there's some bonus cards that allow you to, when you draw them, get a little bit of a boost in some way, and then you get to draw to replace it. So it feels a lot more like a deck builder for me. And they added in a couple other interesting aspects. We don't have necessarily the same I felt the original game had a slightly awkward how much to pay to reach a certain railroad station that was difficult to explain to new players, and I feel like that part's a little smoother in the new game for New Zealand, although now they add in this extra board where you can sail around and deliver wool and sheep by sailing instead. So I really liked this New Zealand version. What did you think, Shu?
Yeah, I really liked it a lot. So we briefly mentioned it on the last podcast. So I'm like, I don't know if I could go back to playing the original Great Western Trail anymore. But part of that's also like I've played that a million times, and this is very fresh and new. I said the same thing about Argentina, but I feel stronger about that for New Zealand because it just was really cool. Like you said, there's more deck building to it. There are many more cards you can put in that aren't
You can get a
sheep.
sheepdog.
Yeah,
so cool.
And then there's like it's streamlined and it's more at the same time, if that makes any sense. I feel like it's a smoother game, but there's
bigger stream.
Sure.
Did you both feel like it was like there was more money in that game, like more lenient?
Yes. I think so. I think it was not quite as punishing, where you're like, oh, I'm 1 coin short, I'm 2 coins short. That happened a few times, I think, but because you could lean into the wool strategy, so instead of just turning in your sheep for the final amount at the end of the trail, along the way you can shear some sheep and get money just for their wool for a different sort of way to supplement, and I think that really helped.
Yeah, because in original, there's ways to get a little bit money along the trail, but in the original game, it's not until you reach the end before you cash in your cards, and your cards have to be, you have to hope that your hand is diverse to turn in all these cows.
You don't hope it, you have to
have
toward
it, yeah. So you and then it can limit your money, and then you have to pay money immediately for the railroad thing you talked about. But in this game, yeah, you can like along the way, I'm going to share some of these sheep, get some money. I didn't lean into that strategy, so I was still poor when I played it, but I could see other players playing where they're like piles of money. I'm like, oh my god, like yeah, I agree with you, Phil. There's like you've never seen that many coins on the table for players in the original Great Western Trail. Yeah.
It definitely felt like you could just do all of the actions and just like barely have enough money for everything, but just being able to take off the hazards or being able to buy bonus tiles that help you, it just feels like you can do everything.
Hot take, this is actually my least favorite of the three.
Man.
Yeah, I see why people like it. I feel like one of the reasons I love Great Western Trail so much is in my top 10 board games of all time is because the economy is so tight. And I like that puzzle of having to figure out where to get your income from, where to spend it the best. And I feel like it also sort of limits the number of options you have in the game when you have less money, because I only have $2, so I can only do X, Y, and Z. And yeah, very hot take, because I see that all three of you prefer New Zealand.
Well, I think Raina thinks New Zealand is a baby game. I get it. So
it is. It's a game for babies.
Wait, Raina, Phil, have you both played the second game, Argentina? Great Western Argentina. So
everybody's rankings.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So Raina, you first. How do you rank them?
Great Western Trail, OG, then Argentina, then New Zealand. So the order of publication.
Okay. I'll go next because mine's the exact opposite. But again, with the caveat that I've only played New Zealand once, so it's very fresh and exciting. So like I don't know if I played it as many times as the original. That's the more fair way to rank it. But based on that, right now, New Zealand number 1, Argentina number 2. the original number 3. I still love them all. Like the original is still a fantastic game, and I'd play that anytime. But I'm just excited about all the new changes.
And Phil?
I think I would prefer number 1, original, and then New Zealand, and then Argentina. I felt like Argentina didn't add, like, if I'm remembering correctly, it didn't add that much, and the whole shipping track where you're trying to sell it to a ship before it leaves the port, like, it felt a little difficult to get all the way to the harder ones before it ships, and it just didn't feel great even having to ship to the last ones and stuff like that. I think the only thing that I really, well, not the only thing, but one of the main things that I really loved about Argentina was your ability to kind of like shortcut to get to the to sell your sheep. I thought that was really cool.
Cows in Argentina, but yeah.
Cows, yep. But original is still the best for me. New Zealand, because of being able to do different things and just have abundance of money, and then just Argentina last.
I'm having a tough time putting our the original and New Zealand, because I'm still always really excited to play the original, but I think again it's like the novelty probably of New Zealand. I put Argentina last, so I enjoyed it when I played it. I just never felt like, ooh, I have to play that again immediately, and I felt that about New Zealand. So maybe it's just the sheep. I'm into animals, so cute.
That's cool. We all have
Whoa.
different rankings, but no one has Argentina number 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what game did you bring for us today, Phil and Raina?
Yeah, so we decided to talk about Dune Imperium Uprising, published by Direwolf and designed by Paul Denon. And I'm going to let Phil take away the little explanation because he played it 3 times in 1 week.
I will try and do my best to talk about it, but basically Dune Imperium Uprising is kind of like a V2 version of Dune Imperium, which is a deck builder worker placement game where you're trying to manage a lot of your scarce resources, trying to, I guess, get good cards, build your deck correctly, and then fight in an opportune moment to seize the victory. And it's like a race for points. But yeah, just the new mechanics that were brought into Uprising, I feel like were done very well. And the cards that replaced the original feel a lot more powerful. But I do feel like in this version, there's a lot more focus on combat, which I'm not sure that I like, because in the original, you definitely could win without participating in combat and just going up the different political tracks and then buying spice in order to get points and race up that way. In this one, with the new mechanics, you're able to bring in sandworms, which is also really cool. But whenever you win with sandworms, you can double the rewards of the combat victory, and some of those can give you like 4-point swings. So that part was really cool because I was the one that did it, but I don't know how my friends felt when they were on the receiving end of a 4 or 5 point swing.
On the receiving end of your sandworm.
Yeah, and we're talking just 10 points to end the game.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
4 or 5 points is a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Dune Imperium's also in my top 10 games of all time, and after playing Uprising, I wasn't sure about why I still prefer Dune Imperium more than Uprising. I think you really hit the nail on the head when you said it's more combat focused. I'm very combat averse, so was not the biggest fan of the new focus on combat. And also, when I played Dune Imperium, I prefer to play with the 2 expansions that they have. So I think I like that whole experience better, but in terms of Imperium versus Uprising, like just the base game, I would probably prefer Uprising because it's more gamery.
You would prefer the new one.
If it's just base
If it's
without
just
the
base
expansion.
game,
Just
yeah.
base game. But I think, can't you... Phil, you read the rules. Can't you add those old expansions to Uprising as well?
You can. It does change some things, which I didn't really read, but it definitely allows you to use the previous expansions with it. But yeah, I don't know how you actually have to change things. And we haven't actually played with the expansions with Uprising.
Yeah. Yeah, you. So we brought it to that same snow weekend, and then I think it's like 12, like midnight, and you're like, "Hey, do you want to play Dune Imperium Uprising?" And I'm like, "Sure." And then it was like 3 a.m. and I was going
Yeah.
snowboarding the next day.
No,
I was
you
like,
weren't.
No, that day, that was
That
the
day you
first
did.
night. That day, the next day I did go, and I was like exhausted, like getting up early. But yeah, I liked it. I do like the changes. I like things like the spy, which is a new mechanic that lets you, if you wanted to, use a space that is already taken elsewhere, so that gives you a little bit more flexibility in areas. The game we played, the sandworm didn't come up a whole lot, so we didn't have those big kind of like, oh, this really sucked because somebody else got 3-4 points in one shot, which is really hard to do in the original game. So yeah, I think I like the changes, but I that one more than the Great Western Trail, where Great Western Trail, like today, I'm like, no, I would absolutely want to play the new game versus the original game. Where Uprising, like if someone's like, which one do you want to play? I'm like, I could go either way. If you want to do something new, I think if it's a new player, I would stick with the original one first,
Yeah, for
because
sure.
it's a little less complicated and there's less involvement there.
Yeah,
I
I
still
feel
haven't played
like
it. So.
when I got to play the new one, I like immediately wanted to play it again, because I had like this 5-point swing, and I was just like,
Riding
does
on
this
that high.
normally happen? And I need to try it again just to make sure that wasn't some kind of fluke. But yes, it definitely feels like the power level of the cards that you can obtain has gone up compared to the original base game. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of games, especially board games, like the sequels or expansions, always give you more power, because I think that's like how they reward or get people who played the original more excited, because it's like, now I could do even more. You want to feel more powerful when you get expansions and new things.
That's
So
a great point.
yeah, and it was weird. I don't remember if we talked about this, but the first time we were at, Christina and I were at Beach G-Con and then convention, and then at the exhibitor hall, I saw the box. I'm like, oh, Dune Uprising, and then Dune Imperium Uprising, and I picked it up. I'm like, why is this box so big? Because I thought it was an expansion, and I had no idea that it was a standalone game and not an expansion. It's just like a pure sequel. But I'm like, man, I love the original game so much, I'm just going to buy it anyways and see how it goes. And when I started to read the rules, I'm like, this feels like the same game. There's like very few changes to the new one. So I do wish, even though it has changed, I think calling it V2 is kind of a good way to put it, because it doesn't feel like a real true sequel. It's like 90% the same game as the original.
I honestly really thought it was just like a new board with a team mechanic built in with other cards and stuff like that. And so when you were telling me that it was a standalone, I was just like, what? What do you mean?
You know.
So now we all know. Do I need to play Uprising?
I don't think you need to. Not like Great Western. We're talking about them back to back. It's very, very, very similar to the original.
Okay. Good to know. So let's dive into our first topic, which is what, Shu, as a reminder?
So these are getting to know you games, and then so we received a bunch from different publishers, and there's some older games we want to talk about as well. But basically, over the past few months, like we've been taking our time. One of these games I actually got 2 PAX Unplugs ago. So like we've been sitting on it for a year and a half, and I hope when they listen to this, they're like, oh, it's about time. Like we gave these guys a game, and then they finally play it. But they're all these games that we're about to talk about is like, just the idea is like you get to know the other players a little bit deeper, a little bit better, beyond the average party games. So I'll start with one, and then we have some weird ones in here as well. But the one I'll start with, You Think You Know Me. It's a really colorful box, very rainbowy colors. And then so last night, and it's easy. It's just a box of cards. And then so last night we played this. And then the basic setup is you deal 7 cards to every player, and then you ask a question, and you're going to answer it for the person you're directing this question to. So an example might be, I put some examples out here. It says, I know one food you'd want on a deserted island is blank. So I would say maybe I'll look at Raina and ask this question, but I'll answer it for her. and then Raina will tell me if I'm right or wrong.
So what's your guess? One food that Raina would want on a deserted island.
New York style cheesecake.
That's a food I would like on it. I don't think it's the food, but yeah, I'll accept it. I'll say yes.
And the only reason I know that is because from playing this game last night, like I discovered she loves New York style cheesecake. And then the game scoring is just very like you discard it and get a new card if you got it wrong. You discard it if you got it right, and the first one to get rid of all their cards wins.
I am the champion.
Yeah, but like a lot of these games, like the point isn't the scoring or the mechanism or who wins or loses. It's just like the stories that came out of it. So as we're playing these games, like we're trying to get, and we made a rule amongst the four of us, like not to direct questions to our significant other, because it'd be one too easy, and then I think we would all just default to that because that's way easier. But like even if I had no idea what kind of desserts like Reina eats, it's like the point of the game was just like, all right, I might just take a blind guess, and then I might get lucky, and then that'll spark a conversation. It might get unlucky, and then she'll explain why, and then we'll have a discussion. Like, oh, you like that? You like this better than that? There was like a question about cake versus pie.
It's a tough one.
There are many more questions that are not about dessert.
It's all a dessert
Those are the ones I remember. Yeah. So, or like, what didn't he have one like unicorn? Would you
rather be a unicorn or a mermaid?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And again, you don't ask the person this question, you answer it for them.
I guessed wrong on that one.
Which I think is a kind of a twist on the game than some of the other ones we'll talk about. But yeah, so what did you like Phil, what did you think of this game?
I thought it was good. It definitely sparked a lot of conversation for us. I feel like with just four of us and us limiting our significant other, one of the directed questions, yeah, I kind of had to just throw out guesses for a lot of the majority. Or, I mean, out of the 7, I chose the ones that I pretty much knew exactly for either of you two. But it was a great conversation starter. We talked about the unicorn and the mermaid. I was like,
for quite a while.
Which section of the mermaid are you? Are you a fish top or a fish bottom? And then
you only talked about. No one thinks of a mermaid. I mean, as a fish top.
Have you? There are definitely some cartoons where the
You're
fish
just not
top
online
is
enough.
really awkward, and you got legs.
This is the type of stuff Phil's into, so it's fine.
Yeah.
See, we learned a lot
I think about
other.
these things,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We learned about what kind of fan fiction that Raina has written
Which
in
we
the
will
past.
not divulge to the listeners.
So you have to get to know Raina yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, the thing that I liked about this game is because I feel like a lot of getting to know you games are people talking about themselves, but with this game you get to see how you're perceived by other people, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it was also, I think it's also interesting. I think this works better with people you already kind of know. Like, I think versus an icebreaker, because then you're always blindly guessing, and then the conversation was sparked from there, which is fine. But I think part of the fun is what you just described, Raina, is like, this is my guess, or this is what I think of you, or this is what I'm assuming you're going to guess. So I think having some familiarity is probably better for this particular game. But
it happened to be the last of the getting to know you games that we played together, so it was good. It was we already knew some stuff, surprising stuff from the other games that we learned about each other too, so we could build off of that.
Yeah, so that's You Think You Know Me by Pink Tiger Games. Then next one, you want to talk about this
Dungeons and Feelings?
Yeah, this is a crazy one.
Yeah, so that, like, actually Raina was the first one to notice on the box. What does it say as the quoted time?
Let me see, I'll get the box right here.
Okay,
40 minutes per player or something.
40 minutes per player.
40 minutes per player. And we thought, like, oh, it'd be a cute little dungeon-themed getting to know you game. And it's a very fun idea and concept, but it is literally a dungeon crawler. So you're building out a dungeon with these tiles. We have these different characters who have slight asymmetrical powers, and it's a race to big victory points. And you're leveling up your characters as you're going along.
And it has like a retro video game kind of vibe
super
to
cute,
it. Yeah,
super
pixelated
cute.
art.
But then we saw that quoted time. We're like, what are we getting into? Like, why? But it's because it's trying to include this sort of feeling aspect. So it's interesting because the only time it really comes in is when you need to craft certain goods, which is important to the game. So you cannot finish this game without crafting stuff. So when you take a turn to craft, you're picking two different goods cards, and when you flip them, they actually have sort of a random topic or word on them. So if I wanted to craft something that required a grain and a glass, and they say, one says bucket list and the other one says song on the bottom, then in order to craft, I'm going to roll a die to see who I ask this question to, and I sort of have to formulate a question about
like bucket list and song could be.
So
hey,
no, I have a question.
Sorry.
So if you're going to kick the bucket, what song do you want played at your funeral? That's what I would say.
Not where I thought that was going.
Yeah.
No, that's
You
not
could
what.
sing any song.
I mean, you could.
That's not what a
clever,
bucket
though.
list
Well, I mean,
means.
it could be, but I mean, it makes me think of death. Either way,
Oh my god.
I'm a little more macabre, I guess. But
I thought of a question of like, before you die, what's a concert you would like to see or something like that. You know?
And that's what's cool about the card. There's a lot of flexibility in terms of the questions. There are some times where it didn't really work out, but for when it did,
Yeah.
it was interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I think part of the fun of this game, for the question, for this getting to know you part of it, the specific aspect of this game is that you craft the question and you could be creative with it and interpret it how you want, versus like a lot of these other games, like the questions are written for you and it's like very direct, and it's a different vibe. Like that one, like Christine and I just came up with two different interpretations of how you can do that, but it's up to you how you want to ask it, and then you could kind of customize it for the group or the person you're directing it to. You can like, okay, I don't know, like, but you can just change the question of how you want. And there's a ton of these cards, and so mixing and matching, you could just figure out like, okay, I can invent the question. And the game does say in the instructions, like if you're crafting multiple items on your card or on your turn, you don't have to ask all the questions. You could just ask one question, and then the rest you don't worry about to save time. But we all ended up kind of, I thought we would want to shorten the game, but then I think it was you, Raina, first was like, I'm just going to ask all the questions. I'm going to ask 3 different questions to different people. And then we stopped rolling the die even, because we're just going to ask questions evenly throughout the group. And then so it was kind of fun because the dungeon crawler game is like pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And this was like Phil, you said it's like, it's kind of shoehorned in, this whole feelings part of the game. But I thought it was like a nice kind of break. It's like, okay, we're dungeon crawling, we're gathering resources, we're trying to fight monsters, and then it's like, now I'm going to ask Phil about what song he would like to hear before he dies, or something like that, and then he continues. So it's a very strange game. I don't know.
I was definitely surprised at how just combining 2 words can really generate a lot of conversation. And whatever question you do ask, it ends up like everyone wanting to answer their own part of it.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is too, when you ask someone a question, you're crafting these items with these resources. They actually, as a reward for opening up, get one of the resources. So like that.
Yeah. So everyone's like, it didn't feel weird, because at first I'm like, well, why would you do this in this game? But because like the other person gets kind of a half resource in a way, then it helps them as well. So it's kind of weirdly semi-cooperative in that way.
even though it's competitive overall. So,
Yeah.
we didn't finish a full game because we had a lot of gaming to do. But Phil did kill his personal dragon, so that was a big deal.
Yeah. So yeah, it's ultimately a race for victory points, but it's a very strange. Like the boxes on the tagline say a social/strategy hybrid board game, and again, it's Dungeons and Feelings, which like as soon as you see that name, people are gonna be like, "What the heck is this game about?" And we've also had this sitting here for months. from sent to us by Gwim Games, GWIM, and yeah, like every time people have seen this at our house, they
like,
like
"What is
immediately pick it up, and they're like, "What is this game?" And I'm like, "I haven't played it yet, but this is what the concept is." So
I do like the tagline. It's "Open up, dig deep."
yeah,
I really
very
wonder
cool.
how this was pitched. Like, I really love dungeon crawling, but I really, really need to like get to know all of my friends. But also, it's a dungeon crawling, and you're not cooperatively killing things as a group, getting to know each other. Right? You know, like
Yeah,
that's what I
yeah.
assumed. Like we were all in the dungeon together, and we're fighting things, getting to know each other every time we like fight or something like that.
Yeah, I
Feels
felt
very-
that was a little disparate. that
Yeah, Phil's very
feeling.
passionate
Yeah.
about dungeon crawlers, so he has a lot of opinions about those.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
love them.
Yeah. It was a very strange game, very strange mix. It does feel shoehorned in, but like I did enjoy when I'm like, okay, I'm gonna craft now, and I got to come up with the question first of all with these words I'm given, and then ask the questions and then go from there. So I really like that break. It's like, all right, we're dungeon crawling, and then like, oh, let's stop for a moment and have a conversation in the middle of this game. Very strange, but really interesting.
Quirky and
Yeah.
unique.
So, quick change of pace. Another game I wanted to talk about. I think I saw you do a video of this, Raina. Priorities, right?
Yes.
It's like, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, so Priorities is actually me and my girlfriend's favorite game. So on a turn, this is a cooperative game. You're gonna deal out 5 cards face up, and these are the most random, out of pocket things. Like it'll be like the patriarchy, a $6 latte, cats, wet socks, and the matriarchy. And on a player's turn, they are going to write on their board how they would prioritize them, whatever that means to you, whether it's like how much you like it, which is generally what they're going for. And then the rest of the players try to predict how they're going to answer. And for every one that they get right, you flip the card over, it has a letter on it, and whoever spells priorities first, whether it's you or the computer when you lose cards, wins. And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
We had a lot of fun with that too. It's been a while, I think.
Yeah, we had this a long time ago. Yeah, but sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, it's just like, yeah, trying to figure out how somebody would order something is like an interesting peek into their brain. And sometimes you're super right, and sometimes like, why would you put that higher than that? You know?
Yeah,
It's
and
also, I think.
No, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, a lot
I
of
think
people-
it's really. I knew this was going to happen.
I know. Okay, I'll go first. A lot of the fun is, like I said, there's a lot of just random, out-of-pocket things in there that you would never even think about to talk about.
Yeah, and I love it, similar to where you're saying for the first game, You Think You Know Me, you get an insight into how people view you, right? And it's really fun because you watch this discussion amongst the group happening. They're like I remember one was like, well, Shu is very clean and organized, so he's going to want this. And but someone's like, no, but he also hates this thing. And they're all arguing what order this should go in. And it's just like really fun to watch this discussion about you. And so everyone kind of gets their turn to feel kind of special for a moment. Like you're in a spotlight and the whole group gets to talk about you, and you're just kind of listening and watching. And you get, it's like celebration if you get it right, or then you have a quick discussion afterward about why they're wrong about or why you picked the order that you picked. But yeah, and it's really simple to play too.
Yeah.
And did you like it, Phil? Have you
Phil's
played
been
it?
very quiet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what more I can contribute to this conversation
okay.
since you guys really hit all the points that I thought about this game. So well done to you guys.
Yay, us.
Yay!
All right. Another game for our list is It's Kind of a Fun Story by Pop House Collective. This is the one they gave me a year and a half ago, and I'm like, later I'll send them my notes like, sorry it took so long, but we finally covered it. This is a strategic. This is the tagline on the box: a strategic storytelling game that lays all your cards on the table, and it's a really cool looking box. It's just like this rainbow kind of like almost
sort
trippy
of
technicolor kind of
70s,
blast of
yeah.
music of colors and stuff at you. But so basically, you get a bunch of cards, and they're all story cards, and the game is about encouraging people to tell stories about things that happen in their life, and then. The gameplay is sort of like there's things where you can either ask a neighbor, you can play a card if, like, let's say I ask Christina a story about something, and then about a particular subject matter, and then Phil's like, oh, I have an even better story, then he could play a card to sort of also add his story to the mix, and then everyone could kind of decide, or the person who played the card kind of decide which story they like better. But here's an example, a couple of examples, like one. What story from your life comes to mind when you hear fire, like the word fire? And it's so you can tell. Like I don't think I have a good story for that, but it's like someone might have been like, oh yeah, like I once burned down my house when I was a kid or something like that.
Did anyone do that here?
I think I had a neighbor like 2 doors down. Their house was like burning down. It was crazy.
The whole house burned down?
I don't think the whole house, but it was on fire. And there was like fire trucks. And I was like a child. I was like, I have no idea what's happening right now. I mean, I did, but yeah.
But why that happened?
Yeah.
And some of these cards are like, everyone gets the answer, like, tell us the worst gift you have ever received. Or this one is, tell us about a time you heard someone gossiping about you. And, like, you think back, I have a story about that. I was, like, standing right behind a person. They're talking crap about me, and I totally called them out on it. But so it's, like, it's fun. So the 4 of us played this one night, and it just led to a ton of stories. Like, we're just all thinking back. So I think these story cards seem really well written and really well thought out, because it's like, oh yeah, this did happen to me, or I know someone that this happened to, or hey, we did experience this thing. And you start relating these stories, and you start hearing all these stories from all your friends and things that happened in the past. They're like, oh my god, it's like, and then because they're stories, not just like an opinion on something. So the first game, like, You Think You Know Me, when the mermaid versus unicorn story, like, that's a fun conversation one way, but these stories are like actual events, and it's a lot of times you're like, oh wow, like, I can't believe you went through that, and then you start sharing stories like that. So, and that's the whole point of the game. So
yeah,
the
great thing about this game is the mechanic where, like you said, when someone tells a story, someone else can say, oh, I have an even better story, because a lot of the times with games like this, someone else gets asked a question and you just think, like, I want to talk about that question too, but I don't want to make it all weird. It's not my turn. So the fact that this game gives you the space, allows you the space to do that, I think was the best part of it for me.
Yeah, and then they also have what's kind of cool is there. I forgot what the card is called, but there's a card in there that you could play that's sort of like almost like a safe word. If you're like, someone asks you a question and it's like very triggering and it's like a bad time in your life and it's like, I don't really want to talk about. You can just play it and it's like no explanation needed. We just move on and pick something else altogether. So I thought that was kind of a cool. I don't think we needed it right for our group, but it's good.
I think it was
bound
used
to
a
happen.
couple times.
Oh, was it? Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't really. I'm trying to remember the gameplay of it, the game of it, but I really just remember that it was just. It sparked a lot of stories from all of us, and we didn't really use the card that was like, oh, I have a better story to try to get this card. I think we all just wanted to like talk about what that conversation or that card was talking about. So they really did have really good questions in there that you wanted to talk about these things.
Yeah, I think in general, like a lot of these getting to know you games, like it's just there to like, I hate using the word lubricate, but like lubricate conversation. Christina. Yeah. Somebody was using it the other day, and now it's stuck in my head like a social lubricant. Anyways.
Like, then don't use it, Christina. It's up to you whether you want to use that word or not.
I can't help it. And so it's like, you know, it's nice to have some guidelines a little bit, or like, you know, some rails that you're following. So, you know, it sparks things that you wouldn't typically think about, and that leads to sort of more interesting discussions. But gameplay wise, I don't know if any of them I would call like a game. They're more like activities, and that's perfectly fine too. You know, they're just I was never in any of them trying to like really win, so.
Dungeons and Feelings is out of the ones we talked about, is the only one that has like a proper board game built into it, where the other ones, like, I think all of them, we eventually stopped playing by the rules and just started reading more cards, like, just to like extend the conversation and stuff, and to lubricate everything, get things running nice and smooth and sexy.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Do you take that too far, Shu? Too far. Okay. And what is your topic, Phil and Raina?
So today we wanted to talk about social deduction games because we did a lot of social games recently, and social deduction is such a big and popular genre, not just in the tabletop space, but just in the general board gaming space. And I wanted to get y'all's opinions on whether or not you like them, if they're for you, because for me personally, I'm not the biggest fan of them. So at the snow retreat that we've been talking about, typically those are the games that get played later in the night because everyone's winding down. It's not very gamery. And most of the time I will just say, you know what, I love you guys. I think I'm good. And then I just go to sleep on the couch.
Which is impressive because everyone's screaming and shouting. Which is just like out.
I don't know how you could relax with everyone playing games in the same room.
Oh, Phil's a loud snore. But I will say, though, so I sat out of a game of Blood on the Clock Tower, which is, I'll probably let one of you guys explain it better, but it was really entertaining for me to watch. And that was probably one of the first times I got FOMO from not doing a social deduction game, which is crazy.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that one first then. So our friend Brian at our snow retreat, we call it SnowCon, but it's just like a group of us, like 17 of us, I think, went. And it's similar to the old werewolf or mafia style of games where there's a narrator, and that was Brian, and then he has this giant grimoire, this book of like where he's hiding all this information, and then they give you a menu, and then on this menu is like all the possible roles that are in this game, which I thought was a really cool addition because when we used to run werewolf, we never had anything like that. So then you're looking at all these possible roles, and then people are like, you close your eyes at night, you'll get assigned a chip, or you draw a chip, and then you find out what your role is, and you're either on the majority kind of townsfolk team, or you're part of the evil team, which is like a small portion of the overall group, and they're trying to stay hidden. And then it's like, if you haven't played these games before, there's like during the day you're discussing who's suspicious, who knows what, and then you vote to execute somebody. The townspeople are trying to execute the hidden evil team, the minions and the devil, while the minions and devil are trying to stay hidden, and they're hoping they'll execute an innocent person instead. And at night, the evil people wake up, and the devil will pick someone to kill and things like that. But there's more powers, like you find out which of your neighbors are evil, or if one or two of them are evil, or you might be protected from the devil, or you get a free shot to kill somebody in the game, and things like that. So there's all the roles will have different little powers that give you hints of information, but a lot of it's just talking and discussing, trying to figure out, suss out who's lying or such. But yeah, so
it's definitely like a way more gamery version of werewolf. I typically don't like social deduction games either, because especially when we used to play werewolf a bunch with our group long time ago, like over 10 years ago, and it just never felt like a game to me. It just felt like lots of yelling based off of nothing, and then I'm like, ooh, I see this in your face, so we're gonna kill you. and it was just not like a game to me. But what I did like about Blood on the Clock Tower is because everybody has a potential role, all the possible roles, and there's a logic behind it, then it adds to that sort of deduction part, which I really like. It's very clever in how it's designed, because even when people know something, like there's a fortune teller who can know that, like I think, or was it the empath? Whatever. One of them, they know like their neighbors, like how many of them are evil or something like that, right? On the evil team. But there's always one townsperson that the narrator has decided will appear evil to you, even though they are good. So there's always a little bit enough doubt that you can play on depending on what team you're on. So it's really fascinating. I really enjoyed my first 2 plays of it, and the third one was too much for me. So I discovered I have a limit on how much social deduction I can do in a day. So 2 in a row was too much for me, personally.
I'm trying to remember, because I've only played it once, but I I can't remember what the difference is between Mafia and Blood on the Clock Tower. Was it just there were more roles and there was also a narrator that kind of dictated the flow of the game, or was like what did Blood on the Clock Tower add that Mafia didn't have?
I think the narrator, the storyteller, is supposed to be like the dead body that dies first, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more control on that person to like make the game fun, right? They don't participate, but they can like they decide like, oh, if somebody is a drunk, they're getting bad information because they're drunk, and then they can decide what kind of bad information to give to make it a more entertaining scenario. So there's a lot of shaping of the game that happens, where in Mafia and normal Werewolf, the narrator's there just to like tell people when to go to sleep and stuff like that, and they don't really control the type of information that people are getting. So a good storyteller can really make this game really fascinating and interesting. We played it 3 times with our friend Brian as a storyteller, and evil always won, so I don't know what that says about him, but that happened.
Yeah, and I think the storyteller could balance the game, right?
Yeah.
If it's like, oh, one team is clearly dominating and they're on a roll, it's sort of like a GM in a role-playing game.
It's a lot more GM-y. Yeah.
Where they have like, okay, I'm going to alter things and I'm going to shape it. Versus, in Werewolf, when I was narrating it, I was just like, I'm just kind of speeding things along and helping keep the pace of the game going, which this person in Clock Tower does as well. And I think the other thing is like that menu, that sheet of like, here are all the roles in play, helps a lot, because then it's easier for people to be like, oh, if I need to pretend to be somebody else, I have a list of what's possible, versus the old games. This is a simple little thing, but it's like, oh, they have to remember what roles are in play, versus this is all like on the paper, and every role is unique. Like in Werewolf too, there's normal werewolf, and I think Mafia is the same way, where there's just some generic plain vanilla villagers that have 0 powers. But this one, like, every evil person has a unique power. Every townsfolk has a unique power. Some are more interesting than others. Some give you more things to do than others. Some are very passive, but you have something where, that's not true. Werewolf. Like sometimes you draw a plain villager in Werewolf, and you're like, okay, now I'm just lying or trying to figure out who's lying, and you have nothing really to do or to go off of other than what other people are saying. And in this game, like, everyone has something.
Yeah, it's so surprising that just like one player sheet can make a huge difference on the game.
Yeah.
Like being able to know every single role and lie about any role in the game possible, even though a role might not be included. And it's also just like great because it's a full sheet, so you can just like cover your face if you ever need to, in case you have no poker face.
So the first time we played at the like our snow trip, basically, we all stayed pretty much in our seats, and we're just talking to neighbors and like, talking across the group. It was a really big group of like, I don't know, 10, 11 people. It was really interesting because the next time we played it, we played with mostly the same group, a couple new people here and there, and there were a lot more like sidebar conversations where people were getting up and like, oh, can I talk to you? And like specifically, and ask them about like, what they might know, what they might be. So it was a very different sort of feel. But the sheet is still super helpful. Like I had to be evil that first time of the second play, and you can still logic out really weird events like through the deduction of it, because in that game, our friend Henry was the demon first, and he just got executed the very first day because he sucked at being the demon. Let's just be real. He was really bad at it. Okay? And so Shu and I were the minions on the evil team, and we were like, oh, crap, what do we do? Right? So Shu was the backup minion. Basically, if the demon dies, he immediately becomes the demon. So that happened. The game still went on. We're like going. I'm like chilling because I'm this minion whose power is just that, oh, when I'm in, there's these 2 sort of weirdo independent outsiders that come into the game. I didn't have to do anything. So I was like, okay, cool, Shu's the demon, no big deal. Then the very next night, he started being real suspicious. And then in the night, I find out that, like, he's dead. And then I became the demon somehow. And I was like, how did this happen? And so I had to look at the menu, and I figured out the only way that happens is if the demon self-sacrifices and kills himself, then any remaining minions becomes the demon. That was the only way that would happen. And by the end of the game, somebody else on the townspeople person side had figured out the exact sequence, I still won. But it was like pretty amazing that they figured out that's actually what happened. So
Yeah,
the goal
that's
of the
true.
game is to just kill the demon, right? If you just kill the demon and no specific minion power makes it so that a demon
There's
gets
a new demon,
resurrected,
right.
then you actually just win, right? You just need to find
Yeah.
the demon.
Yeah. So like, or the demon, they want to win by basically killing off most of the townsfolk. And then so like in this situation, like Christine said, there's a logic to it where now they know if we killed Henry and we think he's a demon, but the game is still going on, that means the
either he was
Scarlet
not the demon,
Woman, I think,
or
is
the
one,
Scarlet Woman was
is in
it.
play.
Yeah.
Because that means a new demon is now in play. So you can kind of start to logic some of this stuff out, which is way more interesting than normal werewolf.
Yeah, I was just mad at Shu because like I got left by myself being on the evil team.
It was a smart play by me.
I really liked that because the first time we played it, I was convinced one of the guys was just evil. He might not necessarily be a demon, but like as the townfolk people, you just need to kill off some bad people so that you're left with more good people than bad. And yeah, being able to just, even if you execute and the game continues, it still feels like you're making progress as townsfolk. Which I thought
That
was
actually is one of my favorite things about Blood in the Clock Tower, that even when you die, you're still in it. You can still discuss, you can still talk about what you know, and you get one ghost vote that could really be important to, swinging the vote in a particular way. So I think all of that part is done really well.
Yeah.
But I just can't play it twice in a row, I discovered, because I get real aggravated and this ugly part of me comes out. So...
Yeah, I was evil 2 games in a row, and it was basically 4 hours of lying to all my friends, and then I didn't enjoy that. I was like, I need a break from this game because it's like it was emotionally taxing for me to lie that much. I don't like lying to begin with, and I'm like 4 hours, like an entire night of just lying to everyone, looking in their eyes, and trying to pretend to be something. But, all right. We'll move on to another game. Another new game we just got recently that's new to the genre is from Skybound Games, Invincible: Escape from Mars. So this is based on the Invincible comic book, which is also turned into an Amazon Prime animated series about the kind of a more realistic take on superheroes, which we've heard before for like The Boys and The Watchmen, but this is like ultra smart writing, ultra gruesome and violent. Really cool. We love the show. And then so in this, there are heroes or astronauts that are trying to accomplish some missions, and then there's these sequids, which are these kind of alien parasitic things that might infect some of us. So there's not necessarily like a sequids character, they're just normal characters who get infected by sequids. And then so each turn you're either playing a card to help with the group challenge, and then like other games you might have played like Secret Hitler or Battlestar Galactica, you could put in fake, because these cards are played face down and shuffled, so if there's a wrong card in there that doesn't help the challenge, you might not you won't know exactly who did that, who messed it up. You'll know suspicions, and you'll kind of have an idea it's from this group of players, someone in there got infected. But it's basically the sequid players, the sequids might grow in power, that more and more of them might come out, and then they're trying to sabotage these missions, whereas the astronauts or hero players are trying to succeed in these missions. And if neither one wins by the 7th round, then you enter a rocket ship and then escape Mars. And then if all clean people are on the ship, they win. If any sequid gets on the ship, then they all lose, because then they all get infected. This is a basic premise. But each card, what I like about this game, and this game was really divisive, because I know Christine has a very different opinion on this, but every card you have has 3 purposes. So you get a hand of 4 cards, and then one top of the card can help you complete the challenge if the symbols and color match. The next part of it is there's a picture of a resource that you can play face down to help a character get the supplies that they need to get onto the ship at the end of the game. And then you can lie about those. You can put fake ones in for both of those things. And at the bottom of each card is a power, like look at a random card on a player's hand so you can try to suss out who's a sequid. You can maybe look at a face down resource card and see if they're the right resource. So there's constant powers that give you an idea. So rather than traditional social deduction games where specific players with specific roles have specific powers, everyone now has a chance to discover little bits and parts of the information. So that's the part I really like. But I'll let Christina talk about why you did not like the game so much.
Yeah, I mean, my main issue is your motivation when you are either a non-sequid or a sequid. Like, it's very easy. Like, every round, instead of like an execution phase or whatever, you would accuse or point fingers at somebody you think is a sequid, and that person gets cleansed. Like, if they have any sequid cards, they discard them, and now they're human again, or heroes, or whatever.
If they have any in their hand.
And they have any in their hand. The way that it's designed, there's almost always at least one sequid card that's still out there, because there's always going to be reinfection in each round. So you may have been clean before, and then you get infected in the next draw, basically. So there's a baseline sequid somewhere out there, but at the same time, it's like, well, what's my motivation? Like, yes, I'm supposed to be sabotaging things, but if I'm suspicious enough, then I get cleaned, and now I join the like big human team, right? So it was hard for me to really get into it. I was playing a hero this last time who got an extra draw in the beginning of the round, which means a higher chance of becoming the sequid again. So I became the sequid like 2 times, got cleansed both times, and it's just like, while I was a sequid, I guess I was trying to sabotage, and I played it true to that, but it just never felt like it made sense to me in the big picture. So that's my issue with it.
Yeah, it definitely feels like even if you are a sequid and you choose not to sabotage the mission, you can then kind of claim yourself as the sequid and just ask to be cleansed and just try to become on the more winning team. I don't know if it was specifically because of our game that we played. We cleansed a lot of the sequid team out. But it feels like if you are a sequid and then you play like you go ahead and allow the mission to complete, and then you're just like, cleanse me, please. That felt interesting. I don't know if that's like the intended part of the gameplay, if you want to do it that way, or if what am I trying to say?
I don't think it's intended. Maybe it's one of those things where, you know, just for the sake of playing the game, don't play it that way, you know? Just, if you're a sequid, just... Because if you start being like, cleanse me, that takes the whole point out of the game. Like, why are you playing this game then?
Yeah.
But I understand that, like, if you... that like, as that's not your motivation, so it's hard to get behind it gameplay-wise.
Yeah. Because I was still trying to play it true to it, but I wasn't really working super hard to protest, because I was like, well, the human team's doing a really good job cleaning things, so I would rather join that team, you know? So I don't know.
Yeah, and the last game we played, I had this power. My power for my hero was that I get to draw a random card and look at it, and then our friend Nam,
From somebody's hand.
Yeah, from somebody's hand. Again, they can have face-down resource cards that also have hidden sequid powers, and in which case they don't even know they're sequid until the last phase of the game. I drew from our friend Nam's hand one of 4 cards, and I drew the one sequid card. So I got super lucky, 1 in 4 chance I caught him, and then immediately it's cleansed him. And then I did the same to Phil a couple rounds later, 1 in 3 chance, I think, of catching him, and I caught it. So I got 2 super lucky draws where I happened to see the exact card I needed to see.
It's true.
So the astronauts / hero team was doing really well in that game, because I was like immediately, just by pure random chance, found the sequids. And then I became a sequid right at the very end before the astronauts won. So then I lost, and I was like, what? And I was like, I was doing so well. So the switching of the teams is a weird thing, because we've also had other friends who are like, this is kind of strange. Like, the gameplay, I think, was good, but it's just the switching of the teams, and not and possibly being like, now all of a sudden you're clean again, or now all of a sudden you're sequid by random chance, was that was what kind of was weird to a lot of people.
I mean, thematically it makes sense, because it's like this parasite spreading, so sometimes you're unlucky, you know? But it takes away some of the decision and the strategy. So,
Yeah. Well, real quick, we're running out of time, but I just want to, let's do some rapid fire other notable social deduction games. Raina, do you have any others that you particularly like
I think my favorite one is Night of the Ninja, which is published by, I believe, Uprising Games. It's like classic. You have one house versus the other, and you also have a Ronin who's just trying to survive. And I like the gameplay aspect of it. There's these power cards that you can play, so you can get more information. But then each round, your alliance changes, so I think it keeps things nice and fresh.
How about you, Phil?
I'll just talk about the OG that I know. It's the Resistance, like the cyberpunk version. There's also an Avalon version, which is like medieval. But that was the first social deduction game that I played, and I just like fell in love with it. I love like
lying.
Maybe not necessarily lying, but I like figuring out what people are and trying to read people and what roles they are. But yeah, that game plays very similarly to the Invincible game. So when I got introduced to Invincible, I was just like, oh yeah, this is basically like the Resistance, where you are trying to sabotage missions. And when I was the Sequid, I was like, oh, maybe I'll just like try to let this go to pretend that I'm good. But that was what kind of threw me off, was just, even though you're bad, you can try to pretend to be good to like be in the good team and then sabotage in the end. But yeah, that's what I
you have
really
to sort
loved.
of build up to it. Yeah. Shoot.
Real quick, the ones we love talking about. There's two games that are basically like 20 questions meets Werewolf.
That's the one I was going to say. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll let you talk about those two, and then the other one is Two Rooms and a Boom, which is, it's a bit harder to organize because you need a certain size group and you kind of need people who know how to play these games, but now in separate rooms. But basically, there's a blue team and red team. Blue team has the president on its team. Red team has the bomber on its team. You mix them all up. You assign these, and then you're put into two rooms. So each room might have a mix of blue and red teams. And you go through several rounds where people are voting and trying to get the mayor of each room to send people to the other room. So you're trading people back and forth. There are other powers and other roles. But eventually, after 5 rounds, what you're trying to do, the blue team wants the president not in the same room as the bomber, where the red team wants the bomber in the same room as the president because they're trying to kill the president. And so it's really cool because it's very energetic. Everyone's standing up and talking and having secret conversations and trying to gang up and form different majorities. And then at the end, there's always this exciting moment of reveal of like, all right, where's the president? Where's the bomber? And then like half the group will cheer and go out. But again, you need the exact right group and circumstances to get that working right. But that's a really cool game.
Is that game just kind of like one round and you're just talking to everyone, and then at the end you decide which room to go in? I've never played, but I'm very interested.
There's multiple sendings of people to other rooms. So, when even like each group decides who goes into the other room, so there's more information gathering.
Well, there's a mayor.
Yeah.
Each room has a mayor who gets to decide, like, okay, round 1, we're sending 2 people over. Their mayor is going to send 2 people over to our room. And then, so everyone should, but then you can overthrow the mayor. Like if it's like, we don't want this person to be the mayor, let's vote and overthrow it. So there's all this manipulation to kind of get your situation right. And then you're like telling people like, I'm on a red team, but you might be lying to try to get information. There's neutral roles as well that are just kind of in there. There's one where I think they're trying to find their partner in this whole group. There's a sniper who's trying to kill somebody in the group. So we should play it sometime. It's like such a fascinating, interesting take on this genre.
Yes, please.
And then the one that I always feel happy to play, which is rare for me for a social deduction game, is Werewords. I really, really like Werewords. I feel there's a simpler version called the Insider that I'm not sure about the timing. They say they both came up with it around the same time. But essentially, it's like Werewolf mixed with 20 questions. And the Insider, or in Werewords, the werewolf, they know what this magic secret word is. However, they don't want it to be obvious that they know what it is. And they're trying to sort of guide the rest of the group, maybe with some like confusing questions to guide them away from correctly guessing the word while the town wants to guess the word. So it's like a very interesting little take on it where there's more of a game to it. There's more like figuring out this word, and then like who has been asking sort of weird questions that, or like taking up too much time or things like that. So I like the structure of having a game outside of the social deduction. So I really like word words still.
Yeah, you two are big fans of word words too, right? I think I
Yeah,
heard
for
you
the
talk about it
same
before.
reasons that Christina listed. I think the big reason I don't like social deduction games because I am such a horrible liar, so it's not fun for me. I'm out quickly. I remember we were playing Invincible. Christina and I both played a card to play to a mission, and I was Sequid, so I sabotaged it. And when it was all revealed, Christina said, "Well, I did the right one, so Raina must be the Sequid." And I just looked at her and I just smiled. I was like, I can't even defend myself right now.
Yeah, I feel
that
like
was the end.
word games, she's a bigger word game than I am. I'm terrible with words and reading and all that. But being able to like lie to people, I feel like is an easier time for me, or like reading people. Don't look at me like that. Being able, not necessarily lie, but just like lie
Yes,
in
lie.
game, and yeah, maybe.
You have a better poker face, is what it is.
Yeah, I also love playing poker, so I think like being able to read people and hiding your own role is like my favorite part of it. And I also just in those games I like to talk a lot, so that helps. Yeah.
So Phil's like, I don't know the alphabet, but I can lie
Yeah.
really well.
Yeah, exactly. I lie about reading.
Knowing about knowing the
About
alphabet.
yeah.
So thanks so much for joining us, Phil and Raina. Where can people follow you and what you're up to?
Yeah, you can follow us on TikTok at 1 Minute Board Games. That's the only social media platform that we're really active on right now. And I'm bringing Phil into a lot more videos, so if you want to see more Phil, like someone that we saw at TeacherCon, they were like, more Phil, please.
Yay.
Oh,
granted.
you have a
That
fan.
always felt nice. Yeah.
And a lovely grateful curtsy to our editor Mike Zipkin. And if board game trivia is your jam and you haven't tried our board game quiz show back from BGGCon, it is up, so you can give it a try. I forced our whole cabin to play it one morning also, so Phil and Raina had a fun time with that, I hope.
And they're also veterans of the game show, of the board game quiz show
The
themselves.
actual quiz show, yes.
Yeah.
They like dressed up for it. They were
Oh,
ready.
nice.
It was a good showing. Yeah, exactly. And so please give us a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Now you can stop listening and go play a game. Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Ryan. Bye.
Bye.